like it's me. I wish I could talk to you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about everything. I just wish I could talk to someone. It's all falling apart here. I can't believe what's happening. Strange. Such a little thing.
That's her. Nicole?
Yeah. First deferred from her in weeks.
We're 5 minutes out. You still got that thing on repeat? Guess you really miss her.
Fishermer is not a job you turn down, but 6 months apart with only vid calls. It's rough.
Dead Space, one of the most highly loved and highly anticipated survival horror series of the last 10 years. With the first initial release of Dead Space coming back in 2008, this game has a lot to dive into. It's a game series unlike any other that takes a lot of influence from other games as well, though. And one thing about Dead Space, one thing that you really can never seem to get over with Dead Space as a series, is the fact that it is so unique and so embedded within its own identity. It's something that has always stood out about this series to me as a fan of survival horror games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill and Fatal Frame as a kid. Whenever Dead Space came out, it really changed things for me. I'd always wanted a game that was a little bit more sci-fi horror. As you all know, I am a Halo content creator mostly, so you all know I love me some stuff that's set in a sci-fi universe with some horror elements, but I wanted a series that really embraced it. Let's have sci-fi meets survival horror. I think it would be such a great thing, and then when I first played Dead Space 1, it really changed it all for me. It was something unlike any other, and something that, to me, about these games is super, super special. And as you're watching here, this is the Dead Space 1 remake that came out not too long ago, and was an absolute masterpiece. Unfortunately, I held off on playing it for a while, because if you all do not know and haven't been around that long, I did a Dead Space playthrough of all of the games before this came out, and I was like, shit, I just finished the entire series and this is releasing. I don't want to go in remembering exactly everything, and I'm actually now kind of regretting that, because this game added a lot of stuff that was never in the original Dead Space, and really made it a new experience. Well, I say that you should play this over the original Dead Space, 1000% you should. Because it takes everything from the original Dead Space that I loved so deeply as a kid, and really just adds upon it and makes it its own new experience in an absolutely amazing way. It's beautiful, it's terrifying, it's just exactly what I want from a Dead Space game. They added upon the story, they gave you more context to certain things, they gave you new things to try out, and it was just an absolute phenomenal experience. But that's not the point of today's video. Really, the thing I wanted to focus on today with this video about Dead Space is a lot of the things that Dead Space covers, because Dead Space is a series that is, sure, survival horror, but they focus on a lot of topics that are kind of very subtly hinted at points, and it makes it feel very much complete. There's not a lot of survival horror games that I can say really focus on these aspects of real life like the way Dead Space does. The way that they go about it, and the way that they hint at certain things, the way they really focus on real, like, things that could apply to real world conversations, is something that always made this series very interesting to me. Rather, it's something like Isaac's mental, fortitude and how he is dealing with grief, to things like religious extremists with Unitology. It's something that has always been very unique to Dead Space about me. You could even go as far to say things like government conspiracies as well, of how things are just seemingly against everybody and is hidden by Earthgrove in its own weird and twisted, fucked up way. It's something to me that has always made Dead Space very, very unique and its own thing, of course. I don't really know how else to say it, but Dead Space is just one of those games that manages to do it really well. As you were exploring the Ishimura and you were seeing these holograms of people in their last moments before death, or trying to survive and leaving messages for their loved ones of, hey, I am here, if you come here, please find me. Or you find audio logs of people unfortunately losing themselves to the Necromorphs. It's a very interesting thing, and there's a lot to be said about it with the way that Dead Space does it, because from the intro, you were brought in thinking, oh, we're just going to fix this ship and go home, and it turns out to not be that. You were here and you are going to experience some of the worst hell that you have ever experienced in your life. And the way Dead Space goes about it is very interesting because they don't hold anything back. As soon as you get in, you know exactly what you were getting into. They don't hold back, they don't make it a build up. They go, no, you were here, this is your problem, deal with it. And it's something to me that has always been very unique about Dead Space compared to games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill. While those games respectively have done it in their own way and have such a unique taste with it that it's amazing, and I will never talk bad on it, Dead Space did not care to throw you right into the action. And they do this with Dead Space 1, and they do it with Dead Space 2 and 3. While 3, I do agree, gets a lot of hate, and I understand why it does, that game has a lot of very cool, memorable moments. The first thing that I always remember from Dead Space 3, and I know this is a little bit off topic because we are talking about Dead Space 1, but is the scene at the beginning whenever the Unitologist suicide bombs on top of a vehicle to really show, hey, these dudes are here to get you, and they do not care to do anything to stop Isaac Clarke. And, well, with that being said, who is Isaac Clarke? Well, Isaac Clarke is the main character, the guy that you're seeing on screen right now walking around. He is an engineer, and he is on the Ishimura to, one, fix the ship, but two, to find the love of his life. Her name is Nicole. She is the love of Isaac's life, and as you're exploring the Ishimura, you have these interactions with Nicole. Now, there's going to be more that we dive into that later, but as you see these conversations, you see a lot of different things. You notice a lot of oddness straight from the beginning, that she is very calm, but also, at times, to maintain this perception, she's also in fear and worried about what is going to happen to Isaac. But at the same time, it comes off as this weird, very odd place kind of calmness that you can't really help but sit there and go, what in the world is going on? Why is she okay, but we all see what's happening here? And also, why are the necromorphs not after her? What is Nicole is the question you might ask yourself when you first log into Dead Space. Or it might be one of those things where you log in for the first time and you go, oh, she's alive, I have to go find her. Which, unfortunately, and spoiler alert, she is not. She is just a figment of Isaac's imagination because of what the marker does. It causes you to hallucinate and see people that are not actually there. It causes you to see those loved ones in which you miss so dearly. It's a way to toy with you and a way to force you to become closer with the marker and to accept what is known as convergence. And as you continue on through Dead Space, it becomes more and more clear. And you see Isaac start turning for the worst. He becomes more aggressive. He becomes more in tuned with Nicole. You see this up until the very end of the game, of how in tuned he is with her being alive and how much it affects him that she is still there with him and that he will do anything that he absolutely can to save her, even if it means putting his own life on risk. And to me, that's kind of a weirdly beautiful thing because the way that they approach it in Dead Space. In Dead Space, you have this ability to leave the place that you were in. They could take the shuttle right out and leave this place forever, but instead, Isaac is determined. He does not want to leave. Even at times whenever you're like, oh, you probably could have got this done much sooner, his whole thing is, well, I have to find Nicole, and he never really gives up on that, and it's something that, to me, is absolutely beautiful about this game. It really allows you to get in tune about how much this grief-stricken man will do to have the one thing that he cares about back, and ever since he lost his parents, it's the one thing that he truly cares about. And let's talk about that a little bit. So as you progress through Dead Space, you start learning a little bit more of Isaac's backstory thanks to Nicole. You learn that both of his parents were Unitologists and his mother was very, very, very much involved in Unitology. And that Nicole was there to get them out of Unitology. And while they thought they were, and she thought that she had succeeded in convincing her mother of the truth that Unitology is not what they think it is, it didn't turn out to be that way. His parents unfortunately killed themselves with whatever they could have done whatever they were feeling that came from Unitology. It's a very weird thing, but it's also understanding as you can apply it to real life with religious extremists, and that's kind of what the topic of Unitology is, as these people believe something so heavily and they believe it's such a truth that they will cause any damage in the process to see their truth. It's something that is sad, but also something that is very much applicable to real life. And you see the destruction that that causes as you progress through Dead Space. It's something that is very interesting and something that always stuck with me about these games was like, oh wow, these are bad people and they do not care what they have done to the people aboard their ship as long as their beliefs become reality. Rather, it's through convergence or becoming a necromorph, whatever it may be. They know that their goal is to get the marker and to activate clear convergence. That's the main goal of the Unitology mindset. It's something that's very unique to Dead Space. It's something that I don't think a lot of games really actually focus on the way that Dead Space does in a very unique way. And I feel like most games that have focused on that conversation have never done it in a way that's felt as complete as Dead Space. Dead Space just makes it feel like, hey, this is a bad thing, and you might be able to notice that you can apply this to real life. And it's something to me that's always been very unique about Dead Space is how they go about this whole conversation. But Unitology isn't just the only thing that Dead Space has going for it in terms of its themes, because there's a lot more, and a lot more that is grounded in reality that I think most people can relate with. And I want to talk about those. The biggest thing with Dead Space that you notice as you play through Dead Space 1, and particularly 2 as well, is Isaac's mental state. You notice that these hallucinations that he is having become more real. They become something that he grasps onto. And as time goes on, while he is freaked out by them, it seems like they also become almost his comfort. It's a weird thing to think about. I think from grief and things of that nature, it's just a natural progression that he would have these hallucinations, but you also do come to realize that it is the marker's doing. But to set aside that, it's something that I think we can all kind of sit there and relate on. If you have been through a grief-stricken moment in your existence, you hold on to everything like it's that everlasting moment with that person or with that thing in your existence. And the way that Isaac harps onto it is admirable. While dangerous, do not get me wrong, it's something that I look at as, you know, a person, and I'm like, I get why they would do it this way, because sometimes with grief, people do not care how much damage that they can cause or how reckless they may be. They just need that thing to latch onto, and to me, it's absolutely beautiful. And as you continue through, you see that grief very much strike Isaac down. I will say more than anything, on the last step with Nicole's side quest that you end up receiving, that there's a part where they get into a fight over Isaac's parents dying and how they had died, and Isaac blames Nicole for all of it as he steps away from a live video call that they are in. And you see from that point on that he is strucken by it, that that was his last moments with Nicole, was a fight that really was not her fault. And when you receive, like when you get to the end of this mission, you really start seeing that it affects him in more ways than you may think. It becomes one of those situations where he starts breaking down and he just continuously apologizes for his actions, knowing that those actions cannot be fixed now. And I think you start seeing it more and more that he kind of has a grip on reality of how is she still here, but also she's, you know, gone, and it starts kind of toying with him. And I will say you see that much more in Dead Space 2 than you do in Dead Space 1, but it's something that you see really start affecting Isaac. You see his mental state start to decline, and it becomes more and more difficult for him to have that grasp on reality, that feeling of being a normal person. It starts to slowly slip away, and you see it in the other characters as well. Rather, it's Daniels who you start seeing kind of through as a character, especially towards the end. when she commits some of the worst atrocities towards her people that you will ever see thanks to EarthGov. And it's so interesting, but yet again, this video isn't necessarily focused on side characters. I want to focus on Isaac because he's a very unique character, I think, to survival horror games as a whole. Because unlike characters like Chris Redfield or Leon Kennedy or James Sunderland, Isaac is a character that I personally feel like I've related to in a lot of ways as a fan of this series since 2008, but also just as a character in general. He is someone that I've always been like, he's a very grounded character. While he has his problems, he is a grounded character, and he's very well shaped out throughout the course of the Dead Space games. He will do anything for those that he loves, and you notice it as time goes on. You notice it as he becomes, more in tune with himself and becomes a more grief-stricken man as the series continues. It's a very odd thing. You see this character who first comes into the Ishimura as this very hopeful individual, and it slowly declines as the marker embeds itself into his brain. And it's unfortunate, but it's also kind of unique. And as you've seen at the beginning of the video when I let the intro of the gameplay, and you really do see that hopeful side of Isaac. And you start, as I say, slowly see that slip away from him. And one thing that I do want to do more than anything is show off a scene from the game where you really start seeing the decline at its heaviest point. So I'm going to play at 2 points, like I mentioned earlier, because I did mention both of these scenes from the game, but I want to mention the live call where they get into their fight about Isaac's parents, but I also want to focus on the point of the end of Nicole's side quest, because it's something that is absolutely insane. And to also sum that up, I want to show the part where you see the true face of who Nicole is and what she is. It's one of those points towards the end of the game where Isaac really, really changes himself.
Isaac. Sorry, late shift. How are you?
My mother, she's,
Octavia? How's she doing?
she's dead, Nicole. They both are. She killed my dad, then herself.
Oh.
Yeah. The church. They, took the bodies before I could,
Oh my God. Oh, Isaac, I'm so sorry. Fucking Unitology brainwashing.
Stop it. Just stop talking. You said she was herself again. You said she would be better at home. I trusted you. God. You might as well have killed him yourself.
She was better. You told me to leave for the Ishimura. You pushed me to... You know what? Go to hell, Isaac.
Nicole. Nicole! Nicole! I didn't. Oh, God. No. Not her, too.
Forget it, Isaac. There's no fixing this.
Let her go, Daniels.
Let who go? Can't you see how delusional you are?
We've got to go. The payload from the planet crack is about to fall.
I gave you a chance to come around, Isaac. But if you still won't see it, I'll help you. One last time. Wriggling override. This time, watch to the end.
Isaac, it's me. Oh, I wish I could talk to you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about everything. I just wish I could talk to someone. It's all falling apart here. I can't believe what's happening. Strange. Such a little thing. Just had a talk. That's all this research was in the end. Not much, is it? Just had to make it listen when he begged for convergence. But I had a different prayer. It spoke. And then it listened. Make this stop, I said. Maybe it understood, but... I can't return what was taken. Why can't I see you again, Isaac? I loved you. I always loved you.
She's Elizabeth Cross. That scientist from hydroponics. You both saw what the marker wanted you to see. Jacob Temple for her, and Nicole for you. Jacob. No.
No, she can't be. What the hell did you do?
You did this to yourself. Nicole's been dead this whole time. You just couldn't handle it, could you? Because if she's gone, at least now it'll be in safe hands. The marker won't turn anyone else into its puppet. Give me the loader remote. No. It's over. We're whole again. For Christ's sake, I'm not going to ask again, Cross.
No! Enough people have died!
Then just do it. I've got nothing left to lose.
Cross!
It's better this way, Isaac. You'll never recover from what the marker's done to you. And when the tectonic load drops, all this will be buried. Just like Earth God wanted.
Alright, we're back from that. Yeah. It's weird. Dead Space is such a weird and hard game to talk about when it comes from a personal standpoint, but also, it's not. As someone who has had a pretty rough upbringing, there's those times of loss, whether it's a physical loss and they are no longer here, or a detachment of sorts. It's one of those things that actually really struck me with this game and made me feel something as a person. Whenever I was playing through Dead Space, there was points of dialogue where I was like, man, I feel this. This is something that I understand on a personal level that I don't think a lot of people do, or maybe they do. And that's one reason I really wanted to make this video. As I was playing through Dead Space, I had an idea for a video, but then as I continued on, it became much harder to do that video because I had so many feelings that I've never really noticed for myself about Dead Space until now. It was one of those things where as I was continuously playing through this game, I was noticing things that I hadn't really caught on to before. There was these moments of clarity, but also these moments of grief and sadness that were just unique in their own way, and something that I just cannot seem to get out of my head whenever I play this game. It's weird. I've never had a survival horror game make me feel this way. Even if, for as much as I love games like Silent Hill 2, James Sunderland as a character, I simply cannot just relate to. He's nothing like me. He doesn't have those points where I'm like, I get what you're going through. Or with Leon Kennedy from Resident Evil, he's one of those characters where he's so protected by his, like, luck and his ability that it's really hard for me to sit there and go, yeah, no, I get you. I relate to you. But with Isaac, on the other hand, he's one of those characters that I can sit there and relate to. Whenever you see him go through these moments of grief and pain and horror, it feels real because, yet again, like I keep harping on, he didn't know what to expect when coming into this. He just knew that, hey, I'm a good engineer, I can do my job, and I can go see my loved one. And whenever he gets here, you see the panic in him. You see the, oh my gosh, I don't really know what to do, but he learns over time and fights to survive. He does this despite everything. Despite, I think, possibly knowing in the back of his head that Nicole is no longer there, or despite the fact of losing everything that he cares about, he still continues to go forward and fight because he knows that it is his only chance at clarity. And it's really unique to me. For some reason, it's one of those things that sticks with me because I think, like, okay, if I was in this situation, I'd probably fucking leave. But then you put yourself in Isaac's situation. You've lost everything. So what does it matter if you die along the way? And that's when it really hits in hard with Dead Space, is realizing that he doesn't necessarily care if he ends up failing his mission and losing. As long as he knows that he tried, that is truly all that matters. And he will take that every step of the way. Rather it's encountering some insane unitologist, rather it's Daniels betraying him, or running into the Hunter for the 1000th time. God, I fucking hate this enemy. It is the most annoying thing ever. I will say this, they made it much more enjoyable in the remake than they did in the original Dead Space. I remember every time I ran into this bastard in the original Dead Space, I was like, God, can you please get away from me? I dislike you so heavily. And while sure, he has a cool design, why is he immortal? Stop that, leave me alone. It's like I'm fighting the tyrant for the 1000th fucking time, and you just keep showing up. But also, I get it, it was a thing for the time, and honestly, he's kind of a cool enemy. Like, he looks cool as shit. It's one of those things that I'm just not gonna sit there and lie about. He's cool looking. Like, it's as simple as that. I fucks with the guy. But yeah, let's get back into reality here, because I do feel like there are a lot of points that I have rehashed on, but it's things that I do have to bring up with every point that I make about this game, because it is something that does mean a lot to me. And I'm going to be completely honest with you all, because I feel like I do have to mention this. I had a whole script ready for the video idea that I originally had. I was working on it as I played through the game, and it was going to focus on a lot of different topics, but as I continuously played through the game, I simply couldn't do it. I realized that there's a deeper connection that I have with Dead Space that I haven't had with a series in a long time, really, other than Halo or Gears of War, which I do want to do my own respective videos on. I really want to do one for Infinite's campaign because I think it's something that is very unique and really shows some sides of Master Chief that we've never seen before. And I also want to do one on Gears 1 because there's a part of that game that really does stick with me as a person. And Dead Space is, yet again, just one of those games that did that. It was very odd, because like I said, I went into this game playing it with the idea of, one, I really want to experience this whole game by myself, just enjoying it. But also, I want to make a video out of it and do a piece of content that I've never done before. And then as I was playing through it, I was like, I can't do this style of video. I have to talk about this without reading a script and be true to myself while I do this, because it's something to me that actually stuck. And it's something that I have consistently thought about since playing this game. It is something that every time I look back on this footage of me playing through it, I'm like, God, I remember that part. I remember how that stuck with me. And that is, I think, one thing that is very special about Dead Space. Compared to other survival horror games, this game just sticks with you. Is it perfect? I would say it almost is. It's, to me, what I look for in a survival horror game. And it's, to be completely honest, the only series that's gave me that feeling. While, like I said, Dead Space 3 has a lot of flaws, there's a lot of parts in that game that actually did stick with me throughout the times of playing it, that I've sat there and I'm like, I get it. Like, sure, the writing's not great in Dead Space 3, sure, there's some corny parts, but I get it. And they all focus on unique things. And I want to talk about that as well because we are now nearing the end of this video, and it's something that I've really wanted to talk about. The coolest thing to me about the Dead Space trilogy, and yes, like I said, despite 3's faults, it still has a cool thing going for it, is they all show different things that we can apply to real life. Dead Space 1 is a game that focuses on grief extremely heavily. It shows the turn of a man who was once clearly full of life, really turning from that and becoming a shell of his former self. And then you go to Dead Space 2, which focuses a lot on the reality of what Unitology is, and yet again, that goes back to talking about religious extremists, and it focuses on that element, but still maintains this grief point, but also this mental side of things as well. It's very interesting. It's like they took the grief element of Dead Space 1 but said, hey, let's focus this on like a more like mental aspect. And clearly that is what they nailed. While also giving in, yet again, that other story of, hey, this is what religious extremists look like. This is the things that happen that we may not focus on as people, but these are things that can actually happen in real life. And then you go to Dead Space 3, and it focuses a lot less on the mental side of Isaac, and actually kind of applies that more to Carver, but then you also get this element of jealousy. And it's interesting of Isaac having this loved one again, this person that he cares about, and then, because of himself, them leaving. It's very interesting, because I feel like these are all things that people could apply to themselves in real life when you are looking to build yourself. And it's weird that a game like Dead Space would kind of cause that kind of thought, but it's something that I've always had in the back of my head when I've played these games is, holy shit, I can apply this to myself and my real self, and whenever I'm trying to grow myself as a person. It's interesting, and it's something that I don't think any other survival horror game has ever done for me the way that Dead Space has, and I love it. It's genuinely one of my favorite series. I would say Dead Space is in my top 5 favorite game series of all time, right beside Gears of War, Halo, and Fallout, and many others. This series is just absolutely phenomenal. I love it. It's something that I always look back on as, damn, this is a pretty damn good series. While 3 may not be the best, there's elements of 3 that I do end up loving. And I do hope we see a remake of Dead Space 2 and 3 in the future, because 1 is absolutely phenomenal. Getting to explore the full depths of the Ishimura, going back in between places, having these elements of, well, absolute horror. I'm going to show you a scene now from whenever I was traveling throughout the Ishimura, where I got kind of fucking terrified because I was like, I gotta go back here, and it's on the other side of the ship, and my tram shuts down.
Mining engineering.
So yeah, you all seen that? That was fucking terrifying. I was absolutely baffled when that happened. I was like, holy shit, am I about to get into a boss fight? But yeah, this game's phenomenal. If you've never in your life played Dead Space before, it is a game that I cannot recommend enough. Its storytelling is phenomenal. Its atmosphere is perfection. Like, I cannot describe enough. I think Dead Space 1 nails it the best. But God, when you were exploring this Ishimura, it is fucking terrifying. You see parts of the Ishimura where the marker and convergence has, you know, begun, and you see more necromorphs and stuff like that. You see it more in effect compared to others that are more calm. But overall, you were just met with this unnerving presence and horror that I don't think has ever been nailed in any other game the way that it has within Dead Space. And that's where I want to leave it. Dead Space is a game that is unique, that focuses on a humane side of horror that we don't see too much these days. And it's absolutely amazing in its own right. It's what makes this game series one of the best in the world of survival horror. It's something that I cannot help but just love deeply. And with that being said, I recommend anyone that has never played this series to go try it and to give it some love that it deserves, because it's absolutely perfect. And with that being said, I think I'm going to leave it there. It's been your boy Coreboy. Later, dudes.